Greetings from Wisconsin, folks. Here you can see that we've been on a harvest hiatus. Got a quick video for you today on some new stuff that we've been working on. Hopefully you enjoy it.
Folks, welcome back to the shop. It's the middle of September here in Wisconsin, and the pre-harvest rush is on, and soybeans are really going to get going next week. So we thought we'd do a video covering our latest service, and we're going to kick Joyride into it because we love Joyride. As you can see here, we made the investment in a set of a Hunter alignment setup, and we're going to talk the ins and outs of alignments, the technical points, and why I stayed away from them. Number one, they get a bad rap, and we're going to cover a little bit of why. High comeback rate. Number two, commonly held that you're going to have a bay tied up. Number three, you need to be able to sell when you're looking at it from a shop owner. Is the machine going to sell over and above your regular rate? And basic 3-axle alignment's about $300. So that can be pretty tough to do. We do a full component check because there's no point in even attempting an alignment if you've got any bad components like kingpins, spring pins, rear bushings, track arms, all of that. Now, the bay issue has been solved with a set of portable plates. And one thing that drew me to the Hunter over everything else is that your floor, we map the floor, and we have the setup to do it. You attach sensors to the truck wheels, and they measure angles and variations in the floor that reference off of a consistent starting point. How accurate is it? How much does it help? I don't know. But I know that it's going to be better than the L bracket and laser tent setup. That's one of the areas where I held the belief that alignments get a bad rap is poor equipment. This was the most significant investment. It doesn't look like it here, but you're looking at about $50,000. That's it. But I ran the numbers. I can make it work. And most importantly, I didn't like the feeling of not finishing something. If we bag out a truck, stick 5 figures into a front end doing a custom bag setup or whatever it is, and you hand it back to the guy and it's like, okay, now go have it aligned somewhere, but pay me. Drive's terrible, and I want to take it to completion. And I hold the belief that if we go at it technically enough, we can get rid of the bad stigma that surrounds alignments. We'll talk a few of them points. I'm not going to give away all the tips and tricks. Some of that at some point, figure it out. But a lot of significant portion of the investment here is technology and R&D. That's what you're really paying for. So we got the Win-Align HD. They've reassigned these keypads 1, 2, 3, 4, and the remote as a remote for your buttons here. So we'll go ahead and start it. We're going to enter in this here information, and I'm going to go ahead and get the truck in here. First try. So in starting with this, we have cars and light trucks. Part of the HD package is you get everything in the software. Now we can't hang these on cars, but so it's a 3-axle alignment, 1 steer, 2 rears. Generally we do a rear reference, not always. So we'll go ahead and I already pulled some of this information because we had an existing work order for it. So we're going to go ahead and get the rest of that put in, and then we'll start mounting sensors. One thing we got to note here, I forgot to go into it. We have a Peterbilt Rockwell axle. It's a 961 prior to 1992. You gotta, if you're gonna do a good alignment, and this is one of the small places I think people go wrong, you got to get the information off the axle. You got to find a tag, and if you ain't got a tag, you got to call them, or look it up if you have the parts availability. We already knew this from this tractor, so there it spits out the specs. Little bit of camber, which that's a tire wear problem. It won't cause a pull. Caster that's in where your handling comes in. That will not cause a tire wear problem. And if you'll notice, there's got to be some cross caster, and those are some of the top secret stuff on the front axle. And I'm not going to spit out the numbers that I use, but to get it to go straight down the road. Too much caster, it'll rip the wheel out of your hands and it'll steer hard, and too little caster, it'll tend to wander. So we're ready to go ahead and mount the sensors. Just like that. There's adapters here to use on an aluminum wheel. It grips on the outer edge of that wheel with no damage. It connects in the inside edge of this bead. If you'll notice, that set of sensors is offset. They're not centered. And that's so that the beams don't interfere with one another, so that the rear drive can sight under the front drive. Now you do have to mount them in a specific direction or it won't work. I also put shop air, generally on every truck, because if you don't keep them aired up, the brakes will come on, or the suspension will come down. And if you don't catch it, it'll cause inaccuracies at a minimum. Hunter claims you can do this, all the entry work, knock sensors on it, and have a readout in 3 minutes. Personally, I don't believe there's any way that that's true. Not done properly, at least. Nonetheless, it is by far, in my opinion, the most engineered system. And I also hold the belief of the most accurate system. One real nice advantage to the Hunter is that you don't have the sensors all got to be compensated, because they're, you know, you saw me beat them on there. They're never going to be perfectly straight. So with the Hunter, this is a little tricky to do one-handed. You got a little truck pusher, we call it the vacuum, and you can release the brakes and roll the truck and comp all 6 sensors at once. You can still jack comp them. You do it with trailers. We jack it up, turn it, and you can comp one wheel at a time. This is way faster. We'll go ahead and we'll get shop air on it, get the brakes released, and we'll show you the comp. Okay, we got all our sensors on, and they're all happy. If it drops a beam out or something, it'll tell you here. Oh, this is the point where we have to enter a bay, and I've got these divided out. So right now we are in 4 rear. For our floor compensation, we are ready. You gotta have all the sensors unlocked and turned on, and these windows will they'll expand out, the arrow will roll to the green. In that distance that we set the chalk, here's the vacuum. Sometimes with our floor, she'll go ahead and roll on her own. I was thinking about it. Now, just because of, talk about pitfalls. Oh, there she goes. Just because the bushing's good doesn't mean it's perfect. So when I'm done pushing, I like to let up on this so things go back to their natural center. And it's scary as hell the first time you push this. She goes taking off on you like that. Gotta have the steers up on the plates. Looks like we overshot them a little bit, but they're on there. And you saw that all went green Now, go ahead and lock that. You'll sweep the wheels in the directions it indicates. Sensor's unlocked. And that's how, I always wondered how they pick up camber, or caster, excuse me. It'll measure the rotation that occurs when I'm sweeping this wheel. One of the things we're going to fix today is going to be caster. She's going to spit out some low numbers. Oh, it's real easy to overshoot. Get her down in the green. It will auto advance. Go through, each sensor has a bubble. Now when we're not measuring caster, I don't, on the drives, because the only thing caster establishes is driveline angles on a driving axle. I wouldn't think we would have to lock these on the drives, but you're paying me for the best job we can do, so we do them anyway. Come on. Steering wheel is level. She's centered. Now we'll enter in a separation. That is, it's the wind align estimates the amount of shim to add and remove. As far as I know, it's the only one on the market that does that. That was a selling point for me to speed the process up, because time is money. We're at the edge of green 06 now. You know, this is where things can go bad. A lot of places, I firmly believe, will send it. If she lights up green, they send them. And we can get this better. Generally, we're down to 0.02 or less on thrust and scrubs. So I'll give you that number. This as applying to logic. You're obviously shooting for as close to zero as you can establish. You got 41 of separation, which seems to be surprisingly common. So that said, adjustments for right side, depending upon your truck, you're going to add or remove shims. I like to take out shims where possible, just removing weak links. So we got a 32nd to a 16th to bring that right axle forward. So we got shims on the left side. We could add shim to the rear, or to the left, excuse me. Or we could remove shim from the right. And we have no shims to remove from the right. So our only choice becomes to add them to the left. We got ourselves every shim we could find. That does not, that does not come with it. Oh, let's see, we need a 16th. We'll start with one of those. These are nice because you don't have to take the bolts all the way out. You just loosen them up and chuck her up in there. We'll go and get some tools. There, now depending on how the truck is sitting, you may have to, this may relax when you loosen the bolts, so you might have to port a power or pull it back. I had to pull this one back, but you can see we got our shim in there added in with the others. And now sensors, the beams are coming in and out, but just through a 0, 0, 0 on the thrust angle. Scrubs 01. And we had one in here, at some point you got to use some logic and think when something's broke. We'd put kingpins, tie rod ends, spring pins, bushings, springs in the front end of a truck. Did U-bolts on one corner of the rear on an airliner. The bushings were good. And we repaired that one center bolt. Got the truck up on alignment and it was calling for a ½ inch of shim. So we're like, well, something's bent, something's wrong, maybe the frame's bent. Well, I measured the distance from the springs to the axle center, and all 4 wheel end corners were different to the tune of over 1.5 inches. And what we determined happened is at some point in the truck's life, them U-bolts had come loose, broken the center alignment bolts off, and whoever, the customer had just gotten the truck in the last year, they had tightened the bolts or replaced them, and they didn't repair the centering pins. So the rear axles were all over the place. And this is, camber. Those numbers look good. We don't bend beams. That's, I got to get tow reference in here. We don't bend axle beams just because it's a liability. Oh, you can jump around in here, which is nice. Specs, reference diameter, that's the diameter of the tire that I know to be, we can even double check it. Sometimes they call it out, sometimes they don't. Still at zeros. Still at zeros. Scrubs 01. And one thing we've learned is that toe you wouldn't think will have an impact on the alignment of the rear axles, but it does. We've had to go back through and redo them. I'm gonna have to figure out what's knocking out that beam. Just having a little trouble there with the turn and when I worked on it. Oh, so caster, we got 2/10 of a degree across, 1.4 and 1.7, and we're shooting for 3.5. And 4. So this is how we adjust those and go in the axle on the steer under the U-bolts, pitch the axle. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off camera and loosen up the U-bolts, jack up the front end and slip them in there and get this squared away here. So we got our U-bolts loosened up, which that's not a good way to jack it. Don't do that. But excuse me, it's Sunday and I own the place, so I'm gonna do it. These are easy snap shims. Being a 359, it's got a 3.5 inch wide spring as opposed to a more common 4. So we got to go ahead and snap one of these off to get that. Got this handy dandy slot in there. No, doesn't fit. Oh, there's already one in there. You're not supposed to stack these. So we gotta get that out of there. So now because I had a 2 in there and I was still 2 degrees short, I had to take that out and get a 4. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. You got to make sure, there it is, there's enough center pin in left to engage all of that, or your setback's going to go to hell on you. Looks like we do. So we'll just drop this side back down, do the other side. We'll snug up the U-bolts and measure caster, and then we'll torque them. And we do that all with a pneumatic torque up. We don't torque anything by hand anymore. Now, caster will still read wrong. The only way to know if you got it, you got to sweep it again. And that's where a lot of alignments, in my opinion, go wrong. When I worked at the dealer, that was not a routine thing. To lift them up and change the shims and everything. And I think that's a big part of where alignments get a bad rap. Unlocked front sensors. And we'll do the steer. So we re-level and lock. Ooh, that's a nice setback. That's your relationship to perpendicular of your steer axle. Caster come up 3.3 and 3.9. Toe should be, yeah, toe's good. Hasn't moved. Perfect. It ain't over till it's over. Sometimes it'll spit out a red number on individual toe. Oh, that sensor dropping out. The floor slopes this way, and we were comped a little far ahead to where this sensor starts to drop down, and it was getting into that beam. Kicked it back just a touch, and there she went. So there she spits out all greens. Individual toes near dead on. I don't know if you can see this. Camber's good, caster, cross caster, total toe, and our thrust and our scrub. So these are some pretty excellent numbers. We're going to go ahead and hit the torque up on the steer U-bolts, and we'll see how it drives. The dealer I was at, we used to go by telephone poles. If you could get a pole and a half without correcting it or having to, you know, apply a correction to the steering wheel, was good. Around here, I shoot for minimum of 2. I like to see 3. Sometimes we get 4 or more. So we'll do all that, and we'll see how she drives. Okay, I had to put the GoPro on life support. Kind of a pro tip. If you got caster that's a little bit off, you can manipulate the order in which you tighten your U-bolts a little bit, just to kind of bring them numbers a little closer together. Common sense within reason type of thing. Now in the shop, we replace U-bolts every go. But since this is my truck, I'm going to run it around a little bit first. Make sure there's nothing else I want to change. Okay, that's it. Knock sensors off, get them back on the rack. We're done. Well, let's see if you can see it. still not happy with that. It's still got a pretty good little pull in it, but we'll go ahead and jack it up and flip the steers around. A lot of times that'll take it out from a bad wear pattern that's been established.
That's it. Hopefully you learned a little something on the tips and tricks of truck alignment, and we sure do appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.